Good morning, everyone. You're very welcome to session 12 of Essential Skills series, kindly sponsored by Flowgas. My name is Lubna, and I'm joined by my colleague, Elva. Today's topic is on time management and prioritization skills. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Sanya Mikkel, who will present this session today. Over to you, Sanya.
Thank you, Lubna, and good morning. And thank you one and all for joining this session on time management and prioritization. This will be a webinar and snapshot of a particular area that is covered in the, there's an e-learning course on time management prioritization here with IEI on their e-learning platform. So for the extended full version, so this is a webinar snapshot of some of the content that will be covered in that course in full detail. I hope you enjoy it. I will take questions and answers in the chat function if you guys have particular questions. You can throw them in the chat and we'll take them towards the end of the session. I will start by trying to share my screen. So give me 2 seconds and I will get my slides up and running. I will start off the session. So again, a little bit about background for myself, what got me here with you guys today. I'm a structural engineer originally by trade. Spent 6-7 years design consultancy, left on the other side of the table, worked for contractors in a number of years. A believer in lifelong learning, collecting the alphabet for a living, recent survivor of an MBA. I work in academia. So a bunch of base of a tree, lots of branches, quasi beast. I have a very busy lifestyle, so I do lots of different forms of teaching, training, and the likes. So what I have done is kind of put this compilation of, I call it tips and tricks and little golden nuggets together from not only my own practices, but those also from practices of the other delegates that would have gone on the courses through the years. So that's kind of like the style of what I'm putting here today as an introduction kind of flair. Work, as you may all are very aware and have felt over the last number of years too in particular, has become more like a state of mind. So we actually have to nurture a particular state of mind to reap the benefit for getting increased productivity and effective use of our time. So if workers, us, the general population, if we can nurture that state of mind, and to help us with that, obviously time management really, really comes to play. I wish there was like a thing that we could call like a magic fairy dust that we could all, sprinkle ourselves with and be cured and given the gift of time management, where in fact you will find that the hardest person to manage is ourselves. Right, so a lot of any course that you'd ever go on with myself would be designed with that concepts of self-awareness and self-reflection. So when it comes to time management, that is absolutely paramount. There is a guru, one of many time management gurus that are out there, but his name is Randy Pausch. He passed away a number of years ago. He was on Oprah and that kind of stuff. And he had quite an interesting way and outlook and saying when it came to time management. And one of them was that we need to see time in a little bit of a different way, in a different light. And he called it a thing called the time famine. And if you actually think of how we spend our time in relation to this way, right? So I'm not sure if anyone in the audience, so this is just asked yourselves, and many of you either get up early and start work and then stay late and continue working, right? Now, when you think about that in this way, so why is there certain countries in this world that still have third world hunger and stuff like that? We all have like plenty of food and things like that. So we should really all get our food and we give it to those countries, okay? So when we get this food and we give it to those countries, what do they do with that food? And why doesn't it cure it? Why doesn't it help that country really in the long run, okay? Because what they do with it is consume it, okay? So they're actually just going to consume what they have been given. It's not going to effectively in the long run cure the hunger in that country, because they systematically need to change how they operate and what they do, and they grow and all their processes, etc., to actually then be self-sufficient and not need airlifting in of food. So for those of you that wake up early and stay late, you're consuming time. You're actually never going to reap the benefit of. You need to systematically change how you do things, okay, to reap the rewards of time management. So think of it, I'm only consuming time here. That's all you're actually going to do. It actually won't cure the problem in the long run. If anything, it will actually just sustain and lengthen out your day and eat into your work-life balance and stuff like that as well. So that recognition that you need to change. Humans are habit-driven creatures, right? All of us, irrespective of our intelligence, we are habit-driven creatures. So one of the hardest things for time management as well is some of the little tips and tricks I'm going to put forward for you today, you have to realize the commitment to try and change, right? You're going to have to break a habit to create a habit. To create a new habit, you actually have to then commit to and stuff like that. Okay, so this is where the kind of the long course of the day. If you go to the e-learning platform, there will be more in depth on this kind of conversations and how do I do these things. But I'm just introducing this concept when it comes to time management. That's what we need to do. Okay. So we have a few obstacles, all of us, when it comes to time management. Irrespective again of our, our positions of where we work or what we do, we all kind of can feel similar things. So a few of them of our obstacles would be, let's say, and that's these visuals just trying to help, right, is kind of not knowing exactly what we're meant to be doing or where we're going, not being specific enough. So we know we're kind of heading in that direction, but we don't really know exactly where, why, how, and all the intricate details. So I'll continue on with that later. I hope nobody's actual workspace looks anything like this, right? But I would call this a disorganized environment. Disorganization and organization are the key, okay, in understanding disorganization. Now, that does not mean things have to be necessarily neat, okay? I would say you need to recognize when things need to be functional, right? So spaces need to be functional, and there is a difference. But again, an obstacle to us is if you have a very, very disorganized work environment. Another obstacle to us is this feeling, right? Now, again, we'll only know ourselves if we are guilty as charged, Your Honor, right? Why did I say yes? So saying yes to every request, or this feeling that I cannot say no, be it whether it's to a client, be it whether it's to our bosses, be it we can't say no. Now, again, looking at this, you have to realize you are doing nobody, anyone, any favors by not being able to take it on, or what is its knock-on and ripple effects. So that is, again, that recognition thing that we would get into in depth later. So an inability to say no. Some other obstacles to us that we're kind of will be well used to kind of feeling and experiencing will be interruptions. So they can come in various forms. The telephone, the email, our colleagues, clients, so people wanting our time consistently. So it kind of, knocking in on our abilities to do our work. Now, I'm not suggesting for one moment that anybody is taking little naps like this, right? What I would call it is, I'll mention it later, it's called an inactive periods. Okay, so we have inactive periods in our day and very, very active periods in our day, and a thing called our prime times. So I'll discuss that in a few moments as well. Okay, so the recognition that these things exist. Again, a few other obstacles, stress, and the building of stress and its impact on how we perform our work, again, has a big obstacle to us. I'm not sure if anyone's out there, again, guilty or charged or not, post-it bandits. Have any post-it bandits? Or even worse than that one is, do you keep things in your head, right? So where's your to-do list? And if it's all only up here, again, how Harold Taylor, he's another famous guru of time management. In a few moments, I'll be showing you something from Harold. And he'll kind of bring this part home about, irrespective of how great we are, our minds are steel traps and we never forget things. That's not the case, okay? So post-it bandits, keeping things in our heads, again, really, really obstacles to us for performing work to the best of our abilities. And again, while the other little lady was having a nap, this little gentleman is trying to demonstrate the point again, is work-life balance and not forgetting to live. And our prioritizations and how do we make sure that these things actually happen in the right way for us, in the right order. So these things all kind of accumulate and they can cause stress. I hope you relate to a few of these. I certainly can. Some days I felt like I was going into work like this, and sometimes when you're coming home, you can feel like this. Or the absolute feeling of just, I think sometimes frustration. Another kind of analogy I would use is, do you feel like you're a ferret in a wheel and you've ran all day and you go, God, what did I actually achieve? What did I get done? So it's a building of stress. We don't operate or do our best work in stressed and heightened states. So we try not to, okay? So all these kind of time management aspects help to reduce stress and help us to perform better. So I'm going to just introduce, because again, this is just a webinar and it's to introduce the concepts of and some of the top tips. The top 10s, right, through research saying, what are the top 10 mistakes that we do, generalized humans, when it comes to time and time management, okay? So all I will say is, in this slot today, I don't have too much time to go into greater depth, but obviously in the course I do. guilty or not guilty as charged. Right, now this one, the top one is this baby, overchecking of your emails. Guilty as charged. You can only answer this truthfully to yourself or not. How many times already today have you checked your emails? Is it on your phone? Is it on your smartwatch? Are you a slave to it? Okay. The more you get into this, you realize and the more practices that you must do when it comes to emails is we cannot be the slaves to Outlook, irrespective of whether it's a client, irrespective if it's the medical profession, if it's I'm due in court. There's so many different kind of, I would say, excuses of why we're slaves to. Okay. So it's not saying that we don't check our emails, but we're actually meant to have structured email times. Okay. But not have it constantly open and an envelope and all the notifications and the bings and notifications and stuff like that as well. Because what happens is, again, if you are the slave to Outlook, it could be spam or it could be a top client. It's had the same effect. You have stopped doing what you were doing. You're having an awful lot of stop starts. Think, again, I'm not sure of the age of my audience here today. I'm a little bit of the older ilk. And I remember a really good game, although it's still a classic, Pac-Man. Yeah. And if you visualize that that's what's happening every time you see an envelope or hear a bing, yeah, you're changing direction, you're changing focus because it's gone. It's having that same effect on your day, right? So the top 10 mistake that we have in there is over checking of your emails. So we're not to be doing it, and we're to have structured email times. Okay. Another one on the top 10 is working against the grain. What I call that is recognition again of what piece of work we're choosing to do and when. And if we choose the wrong piece of work at the wrong time, it's going to feel like that. Okay, so this is where, failing to plan is planning to fail and that kind of thing. So it's got to do with planning in advance. Absolutely crucial. We must do it. So again, I'm just introducing them here and I kind of go in greater depth in the full course. Okay. Doing instead of planning. Again, are you guilty as charged? We have a tendency to pick up and do work and think that we're doing good. I'll just knock it out and get it done. You shouldn't have been doing it at that time at all. Okay, so this is the planning of what work should have got done and when. Very much links as well to the ball and chain going up the hill. We need to plan, right? Now your plan has to have flexibility in it, but you have to have a plan. We don't just, do the Pac-Man and run from task to task. Another great analogy I see in my head, I think if time management, not doing it right, is what's the old machine that you used to pull and a steel ball came out and went in? Was it pinball? Was that the name? Bing, 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 bing. And that's when you have lots of different tasks and you're getting nothing complete, right? So we have to have plans. Number 4, keeping things in my head, the old post-it bandits. We have to have plans, and ideally we want to have plans connected, right? So down in a location where rarely do we as humans, we saturate as one person. We want to work well in a team. We want to connect. We want people to know what we're working on last, etc. Right? So we must write it down. It makes it real. And then where we put it down and who can see it makes it even more functional for an organization or you or your team. Okay. 5 on the top 10s is not spending enough time on your top priorities. Now, this is one that actually just has to kind of click with you. Okay. It's not an even distribution of time. Right. It's the Pareto principle, the 80% of my time should be spent on the 20% of my clients that are bringing me the most revenue. It's that kind of recognition of priorities where your time goes. And it's not the 5, 5, 5, 5 equally for everyone kind of thing. Yeah, make a bit of sense. So guilty as charged if you are not realizing where your time should be going. Do you know who's popping into my head? Only because we're heading back into academia and that. I really try and drill this one home to the final year students when they're trying to do the thesis and stuff like that, because it's not an even distribution of ECT credits across everything. If anything, the thesis has a high amount of power and EC credits. So a lot of time should therefore be invested in it. So it's trying to bring that point home there. Number 6 on the top 10 is that confusion of activity and productivity. Okay. I kind of giggle to myself saying, I know an awful lot of people busy doing nothing. Right? In the old days, when you'd see people running around the office, they must seem very, very busy. What were they doing and what were they actually getting achieved? And how was it being measured? And how was it being marked? All right. So I can look very, very active. Again, that feeling of being the ferret in the wheel, I've done a lot, but has it been productive? Okay. So that confusion of which is really, really quite crucial. Apologies if you can hear background noise. There's some very loud truckering back, so I do apologize. Number 7 on the top 10 is having a disorganized environment, and particularly where you work. So I would call, remember this part is having a functional workspace. So just as an example here, you're seeing it, like, again, if you're going to sit down and try and do work at this desk, not only would it send me a little bit to the funny side, but oh, I'm a slight Monica from friends, very organized party. I want space. So it's okay to have, your computer, you have your phone, and you can have files. But I would want some clear space so that I can actually take work, review work, do work, and stuff like that as well. So number 7 is disorganized environment, particularly your workspaces. All right, so you drill further into that. Of the top 10, number 8 is not handling your interruptions effectively. Okay, how to handle interruptions and being quite, I would say, assertive and protective of your time, right? Because it is of value, remember. So if you ever say, anyone, if you got a minute and you just drop everything, sure, you know what I mean? It's this kind of always willing to just stop doing everything. So that means you're being, interrupted consistently, not having your focus time and stuff like that as well. So again, there's a little bit of exercises to go through on this one and how to have that assertive opening to say, no, stop interrupting me, I'm trying to do work. So how do we handle these kind of interruptions? Again, number 8. Number 9, touched on it earlier, is always saying yes. Yes to everybody. Yes. So again, we have to wonder, I even call it a pond with a pebble. If we drop a pebble, it's even a small little one, right, in a pond, it has a ripple effect. So when I say yes to requests, depending upon who they're from, anyone actually, so if I just say yes to any request, what's the knock-on effect? Be it to my work and be it to others. Because again, remember, as an organization, rarely do we work alone. So what will happen? Again, Harold will do a little bit of the extra add-on on this one in a few moments when I show you the Harold stuff, right? But again, remember, what is a ripple effect when I say yes? And if it's particularly if I say yes to every request. And number 10 of the top 10s of the mistakes that we make in time management. And the reason I show you these two slides, it's very much me, right? But can you relate to this then, right? Now, in my home, I would step over this. If anything, I would crawl over this to do this. I love cutting the grass, right? I really do. I absolutely detest ironing. So I would genuinely look at this and go, my God, yeah, that really needs to be done. And then I'm looking at this going, does it really need to be done? God, I love it. Hang on now, I get over here and I do this. Now, put this in a work context. You do this repeatedly. An example, I should just knock it out, right? There's stuff on your to-do list that you're doing that is basically you cutting the grass for a city because you like it, right? So it's reasons why we procrastinate, right? There's tasks that we like doing, tasks that we feel kind of really comfy and quite competent at doing. So there's reasons why we procrastinate, okay? So these ones, again, why is this building and the different reasons. So the equivalent of your ironing on your to-do list. So has there been something sitting there? It's growing, it needs to be done. You look at it, you're, oh, and then you grab something else to do, just so you're working, but you're not tackling your iron. Does that make a bit of sense? That's really, again, that's why I really do go into the grass. This is a bad my way. Now, remember, the strategies you can do as well. I remember to purchase iron-free clothing. You can always do strategies to get over things, but it's the recognition that they exist. That's really pretty important, okay? Always remember, when it comes to time management particularly, there's certain factors that are beyond our control, right? Okay, so ways in which we waste time and factors that are beyond our control, right? So for example, things like we don't know when the phone's going to ring, okay? We don't know when a client's going to particularly or customer have a particular request, so beyond our control. We don't know if we're going to have an IT issue. Hopefully not, right? But that makes a bit of sense, yeah? We don't know when the the IT is going to go down. We don't know if somebody's going to call in sick or a colleague or anything like that as well. So staff shortages and stuff like this. So this stuff we are forgiven for because we don't know. Now, when it comes to planning, we have to have some form of contingency in there for our planning for the unknown and have flexibility, but still we are forgiven for factors that are beyond our control. We are not forgiven for, on the other hand, factors that are within our control. These are things like lack of good planning and organization, failing to set and maintain your priorities, losing focus on tasks that should have been done, jumping from project to project. They're in your control. Holding unnecessary or unproductive meetings. Oh, that's a whole other area I get into on the courses on meetings. A lot of us go to meetings, and then we're zoomed out, as they call it now as well, right? Spending too much time on the phone and the email and the internet, these type of things. Procrastinating until certain things become urgent. An inability to say no, right? Failure to delegate when you should have been delegating. Socializing too much, downtime too much. All within your own control. Okay, so again, remember self-awareness. Do I do that? Then this webinar will have been somewhat successful if there's lots of those kind of questions at the end going, yeah, I do that. No, I don't do that, I do that. All right, so that's what this is about, particularly time management. So I'm gonna now with the remainder, I'm just checking, yeah, I'm doing okay. Time, what do I have left for the webinar? Priorities. I love this one. Hunt and gathering is so hard to prioritize. If I hunt, I can't gather. If I gather, I can't hunt. Right. And a lot of the time, that's what this feels like. Okay. When it comes to how do I spot my priorities? So to help us with this, again, I love this. Did you recognize at the time Obama, when he was in his official capacity, he was told by the puppeteers, as I call them, he only wore a gray or blue suit most of the time in his official capacities. And he was told, and this was organized for him by the puppeteers, pick, basically, right? He had more important decisions to make later on in his day. So the puppeteer said, pick, so you wake up, left or right, all right? That's kind of what he had to do. When he went into the office, he had his first round of paperwork. He was then told he was nearly kind of given these two stamps. One was a yes, no, he got to make a decision. And the other one said, need more time. So his first round of paperwork, he had to either go, yes, no, so he answered it, or he went, I need more time. Make sense? So he did that with his first round of paperwork. And, the paperwork might have halved, and those that needed more time were rerouted to another part of his day where he was allotted more time to read and make decisions. So what I'm getting at here is when you're looking at your days and how we recognize our priorities, what we're doing, we have to have lots of structure. Okay, we'll create the structure in our day to do these things. So again, like I mentioned at the beginning, you will have email time, right? Things like that. So it's just introducing that kind of concept. At the end of the day, time management will give you this feeling. I love this one, except I'm holding a glass of red. Everyone else can be losing their calm, losing it around you. When you actually master the art of time management and planning and stuff like that as well, it's a sense of calm. The lights are coming. The train is coming, but you can sense it. You can sense it, you can plan for it. So therefore, we don't have this kind of explosion of panic or fear that comes with it. Now, I'm not sure if any of the delegates here today watching are already practicing using the quadrant or if you've heard of the quadrant. So I will introduce the concepts and just say, this is one way to look at your work and your lists in a little bit of a different way to help it pop out of what is urgent, not urgent, what's important, so helping it all kind of come out of the woods for us, right? So with that in mind, we're to look at a quadrant in two ways. Now, bear with me while I try and get this, which I will. So I'm going to try and write now in a moment. Here we go. Yes, what color? I'm going to do blue. So if I look at my quadrant here, and I'm saying to you guys, we're going to look on one axis and say things on my to-do list are either urgent or they're not urgent. And if I look on my other axis, I'm going to look at the things, are they important or are they not important? So if I ask myself those two axes, all right, and I'm looking at my to-do list and I say, right, okay, I'm going to move this into the quadrant. And I say, okay, that's pretty urgent and important, right? So if I have to number these 1 to 4 of how things have to get done, I think it's quite self-explanatory to say, well, it's urgent and it's important. So that's a number 1. Yeah, that makes a bit of sense. Now, if I look at it again and what's number 4, I think it's not urgent. It's not important. That kind of makes sense as well. And I would put number 4 there. I have another name for this. I call it the delete folder. We never delete, right? The delete folder, right? So from a legal perspective, cover that ass in business, of course. So we just have a delete folder. But not urgent, not important. You're kind of wondering, how the hell did it make it onto my to-do list in the first place, kind of concepts, right? So anyway, this is number 4. Now, where people get a little bit tripped up is where is number 2 and where is number 3? The most common mistake is for people to actually go in here and say it's urgent not important, and they put a number 2 here, and they go 3 here. Now, I'm hoping you can actually see the error in the ways there and realize that this should be number 2 and that this should be number 3. Because the word that should be really popping out is here. It's important, all right? It's important, but not urgent. So what it means is I actually have time to do it, right? Now, if I wait long enough, right, what will it become? Number 1, right? So actually, if I continue doing everything the way I'm continuously doing it, everything becomes number 1. Everything becomes a crisis. Everything becomes, and you start living in a stressed world. What I'm going to try and teach and put across to you today is I want you to become a quad 2 person. So quad 2 people live in the number 2 zone. Yeah. Things are important, but not urgent. So I'm having time to do them. And I'm dealing with the number 1s, right? I will manage them. But I don't live here so that everything comes here. I hope that part is kind of going to come across. Now, Harold, I'll show you a video in a few moments. He really drills this part home even further for us, okay? I hope that will make a little bit more sense. So I'll move on. So the next few slides here, as you say, is really just putting across what I'm trying to say there, which was it's important and urgent, important and urgent, what the different quadrants are. Now, bear with me, and I hope this will work for me. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And I'm going to try and show you Harold. Do we have you open, Harold? Just 2 seconds, bear with me, please. There we go. And I hope the sound you can put in the chat, let me know. Hopefully all the sound and stuff works here for us. So again, very old. This is an oldie, but a goodie. Now, oh, sorry, 2 seconds as well. I'm going to stop sharing because for anyone who has any form of Wi-Fi issue themselves, what I'm going to do is, sorry, 2 seconds. I'm going to copy the link. I will put it in the chat. So where are we in the chat function? I have placed it in the chat function there. I think that'll go to, hang on 2 seconds. No, I'm going to say it to everybody again. I just put it to, just so you can see it in the chat function. You can play it independently if it doesn't play so well on the screen. That's what I'm trying to do here, if that's okay. All right. Now back over, we'll try that again. Share, and up, and play.
In basket or on top of my desk. What's that? And I pick that up and look at that over. And what I am doing is, and this is what I was rationalizing, I guess, saying to myself, is I'm checking it over to see whether it's urgent or not. Because if it's urgent, I better interrupt what I'm doing and go dashing off with this thing, regardless of its importance. But if it was simply important and not urgent, then I didn't have to do it right now. I could throw it in the in basket, throw it back in again until it became urgent as well. Why? Because I work better under stress. Well, I don't know about you folks, but I don't work better under stress. I work faster under stress. I found that out in the hospital. You see, when I throw something back in my in basket, I am procrastinating on that task. I'm delaying that task. And as I do so, and I keep working on these urgent items, these things that were important but not urgent, slowly become urgent. Now, if something is urgent as well as important, that's a crisis, right? That's something you have to act on right away. And how many people have said everything around here is a crisis? Everything's rush jobs. Everything's urgent. Of course they are. At one time, were they that urgent? And that's the question. Were they that urgent at one time? If I have an in-basket and a desk filled with these urgent items and reminders to myself, when do I realize when they become urgent if they're buried out of sight? Well, I have people helping me, and they're in terms of follow-up calls, either personal visits or phone calls. Harold, I sent you a memo 3 weeks ago, and I didn't get a reply to that memo. You don't get that memo yet? Oh, yeah, I've got that. And all of a sudden, I start rushing through this stuff. Now, you know, you're funny feeling a pit of your stomach, too. You know, so all this stuff's happening. And I'm searching through these things, and as I'm searching for his letter, I find other things that were only important before, but have become urgent in interim. Oh my gosh, look at that things due next week. Oh, there's something that Ralph was looking for. Well, there's things Betty was asking me about. And I'm pulling all these other jobs out of the service where they can agitate me and work on my ulcers. Not have time to do them. So don't leave them buried out of sight, out of mind, right? And who wants to have a peaceful day? Eventually, though, I find his letter. Oh, yes, I've got your letter here. In fact, I was just about to reply to that. I lie. And he says, well, I didn't mention it in the memo, Harold, but could you also send me 50 folders indicating the new programming you do, the new services you're now providing for the community? I said, oh, sure, I know what you mean. Yeah, we've got that in booklet form. Hang on, you want how many copies of that? You want 50? And what I'm doing now, folks, is searching for a scratch pad, which I can't find among all this clutter. And I was actually using scratch pads, notepads, little cubes. I felt obligated to use these little scratch pads because they got them free from suppliers and vendors. A lot of them said from the desk of, as if desks could write letters. And I was writing notes on these silly things. Caught up in the paper clips in my pocket, my dressing room table at home, hundreds of these things. Sometimes I couldn't even find the scratch pad fast enough so I do the next best thing. I rely on my memory. Now, I don't know about you folks, but I had a memory like a steel trap. Who's going to forget to send out 50 folders from the time they hang up? So I said, no problem, Ralph. I'll get to those folders in the mail just as soon as I hang up, right? As soon as I get off the phone. But only in seminars like this does one work in isolation. If somebody walked in upon you and you were on this phone and you were listening to somebody telling you about folders or some other thing, you're not talking yourself, you're not writing. Therefore, visibly to this person walking in, you're not doing anything. You see, they immediately spot this direct channel of the brain here. I mean, they've done their research. They know we've got two brains anyway. Only one's being utilized. So they start talking to this one. Now, somebody walking is talking here. There's a conversation still going on in here. As if that's not bad enough, this intruder, recognizing my left ear must be twitching for some reason or other, actually whispers so as not to bother me. I'm trying to strain to hear what this person's saying. I'm hearing half of two conversations. I finally get off the phone. I give my attention to Sam, who just burst in, right? And the phone rings again. That's another urgent item. Excuse me, Sam? No, don't you leave. I want to waste your time, too. Hello? Now, I've got a guy held in abeyance here. That kills his hour, I'll tell you. And I have new conversation going on in here. My goal now is not to listen to this person, but to get off the phone fast and go back to Sam. And so I'll promise the world we'll try to do that. Yeah, it doesn't seem unrealistic to me. No, 15 seconds you want that done, right? Okay, but hang on. Excuse me, Sam, what were you saying? I'll go back to Sam again until, of course, the next interruption, which is usually the phone again. Now, here is a funny thing. That's the way my mind works. Anyway, I think yours probably does, too. As newer information goes in here, it pushes the older information out here. And quite frankly, I forget. And because I forgot, I've generated for myself another follow-up call. And this person now, a week later, is really irate. Did you not send out those folders? Remember you promised me a week and a half ago you're going to put them in mail that morning. I thank God for poor meal delivery in this country. You didn't get those yet? That's disgusting. I just got my Christmas cards the other day. Tell you what, Drew, I'll throw another 50 in the mail. You keep the whole 100. I might even tell the truth during a weak moment. But what do I do? Resolve that call. Interrupt myself and rush off and get those silly, trivial 50 folders. Unless, of course, I had some help in my office. I had someone else to help me, you see, some underling. Then I could pick up the phone and be a carrier of the disease called disorganization. Hello, Joan? Yeah, sorry to bother you again. I just realized something else. You do me a favor and explain to Joan what to do. Well, what was this person, Joan, doing at the precise moment that I interrupted her? Who cares? I mean, that's what telephones are for.
I absolutely, is there else I'm sharing there? Every time I watch that, I see so many different forms of what you just introduced there. The ripple effect, what were they doing, the knock-on effects, the 50 trivia folders, doing what they should never have been doing. There's so many ways of looking at guilty as charged, Your Honour. The losing focus, losing context of what's actually a priority just because the phone rang. Somebody interrupts and came into your office, therefore there's a new priority, even though they haven't spoken yet. Like, we're so guilty of it. It's that, I think it's an oldie, but a goodie for bringing home the concepts, particularly, sorry, I'll go back and show the screen again, particularly of, as I said, the quadrant aspects and keeping things in my head and stuff like that as well. So again, just introducing that concept, I hope it helps it hit it home of what these slides are about, which is what requires immediate attention, the quadrant, the crisis, what is an important and urgent, and what I should be working on, presentations, preparations, planning relationships. The 3 is kind of nice to do because it's urgent somewhere. So like that's actually important to somewhere in the organization. Sometimes I can even be jumping in to help out a colleague or a client and stuff like that as well, but it wasn't necessarily your to-do list. And then 4, of course, which is the time wasting activities, the time eaters, the time stealers, things that I would say, as I say, try and, cut down on and get rid of. Now, when I first tried to practice using the quadrant and committing to getting this as a new habit for me, I love this slide because this is what it is. I should be living and focusing on number 2s, right? I want to be living in number 2. I want to manage number 1s. They're the crises. I want to avoid as much as possible the threes and the fours, right? Distractions, interruptions, time wasting, this kind of concepts. So we really, the threes and fours, we try and, do away with as best we can. But we want to live in the number two. So I love this. If you have anything and you need to start creating that habit, have a look at this and keep it kind of visual for yourself. Humans were very visual driven creatures, and it helps us in memory recall and stuff like that. So to become that quad two person, you need coherence. You need an ability to balance your work. You need to be able to focus. Again, I spend a bit of time on the actual full course, which is context of how to create focus and attention spans and stuff like that. We all need an ability to get along with people. Okay, rarely even if we're genius, we saturate. We're one human, so we have to work with other people. So that ability to get along with people, getting information to us quickly, all that kind of stuff helps us again with our productivity. So we need to get along with people. We have to have flexibility in our plan. And I spend time on the course in showing you examples of how to make sure that you're designing in flexibility within your plan. And ideally, we have some degree I call it a time kit as well as you go into it, is a portability, always to have some manner of it with you so that you can kind of be focusing and looking at the train lights coming, and planning for it and stuff like that as well. So becoming that quad two person and the creation of those habits. How to have at the top of your mind for being a quad two person is really, really important that you understand it's always about organizational goals and your role within the organization, okay? The adaptation and the practice of using smarts. The development and utilization of different forms of schedules. There's not one size fits all. That's why I mentioned a thing called a time kit. You kind of create and pick the ones that work best for you. And it is that practice of daily adapting to your work roles, right, and what needs to be done. I love this when I'm having conversations with people, particularly about time, and with clients and with bosses and stuff like that as well. And that realization that when I go to do my work, particularly, not all work, quality. So the quality of what I can produce is intrinsically linked to resources and time. So if you press me for time and I want to produce the same quality, I'll say, great, give me some more resources. And I can produce the same quality. If you squeeze my resources, squeeze my time, the quality will be affected. Yeah, but it's a great way of having that conversation about what can be produced. You increase my time, you increase resources, I'm going to give you really, really high quality work. So generally it is influenced and they're connected intrinsically. So it's a great way just to have it in your mind and have that conversation about it. I will, we're coming close to the end of this kind of introductory elements of the time management course. And I mentioned there about becoming a quad two person and adaptation to using smarts. Now, smarts came and it kind of became more famous and best known for performance management. Specific, sorry, there's a link here. So it's called specific, measurable, achievable, relevant / realistic, and time bound. Okay, now when we think of performance management and stuff like that, that's where it kind of probably got its best reputation for. I use it for time management. I use it for delegation. I use it for communication generally. I use it for accepting work. It becomes a way of thinking, the smarts, okay? I have a little link there. I'll be sharing the slides with you so you can follow that link there, and it will give you a kind of a very short YouTube video, again, what do we mean by smarts? And it'll introduce the concepts of, again, if I have a goal, because remember I told you it's organizational goal, your role within it, etc. So how do we use these smarts? And in the course, I go into this in greater detail, and then I give you activities, smart activities to physically do. Because it's well and good to say, yeah, I know what that means. But then if I give you, let's say, a document and go, okay, alter that, make it smart. It's a little bit harder, yeah, because it's that practicing of our brain to say, well, have I been specific enough? When and how can I measure that? Is that actually achievable? Or how relevant is that within the organizational goal and a time bound? We can add time in different ways. We can have a deadline. We can have a window. We can have specifics, 3 hours per week per week. So time can be included in many different forms, but it has to be in there. So again, for the concepts of the webinar, I'm just putting across that this is crucial. It's the best piece of advice I've ever seen is start thinking this way. If you're receiving work from bosses and clients, think smart. Is it smart? Do you need to know more? Is it specific? When does he need it? All that kind of thing. It becomes a great, great habit. And if you started practicing the smarts, you'll notice you procrastinate less. One of the main reasons, there's two reasons why we procrastinate most on stuff that we don't want to get done. One is you don't like it, the irony. Yeah. And the second one is you're usually missing a piece of information for you to complete the puzzle. And we don't want to go back and ask, whether it means that we look incompetent, whether it looks like we can't ask a client again. We don't want to go back and ask, but we're missing a bit of the jigsaw that makes it easy to just go and do it. So when you're accepting work, remember, always be asking the smarts, and it means you get that full picture that we can get the work done, and the adaptation of using the smarts. And that's what the smart activity would be. I'm going to end the last few moments before with which I call the rocks of life in a time management way. So let's go back and think about the quadrant, right? So 1, 2, 3, and 4. You are an empty vessel every day. All right. So this came from there was a lecturer who gave a thing on YouTube, and he came in and he was a philosophy lecturer, and he brought an empty glass, an empty jar, and he says, "Is this empty?" He poured in rocks and he asked the glass, "Is this full?" And they went, "Oh yeah, it's full." He opened the drawer, poured in sand on top of the rocks and said, "Is it full yet?" They all went, "Oh God, yeah, it's definitely full now." And he opened another drawer, poured in water on top of the sand on top of the rocks, and he goes, "Is it full yet?" His, was saying you can bear more and take more in life, even when you think you're full, and all that kind of thing. Now, my adaptation of that kind of a philosophy is on time management. You are an empty vessel every day. So let's do it the way you're currently doing work, right? Let's say in reverse. You're an empty vessel, you go in, you get your water, your number 4 and your 3s. You pour it into the jar. Is there a problem? No, it goes in, grand. We're going to get your 2s. Your 2s are your sand. You pour in the sand on top of the water, what will happen? Will it go in? Yes. Will I lose water? Yes, but it's only 3s and 4s, so it's no biggie, no problem. So we're still doing okay. Phone rings, oh, crisis, need to get a rock in there. So first of all, can I pour it in? Will it go in easy? No, it needs to go in. What happens? I need to actually push it in. As I push it in, I start losing sand. Is that a problem? Yes, starting losing the number 2s is not good. And also the sand starts to get compacted. Another crisis, another phone call, another email. Uh-oh, rock needs to go in. Uh-oh, keep pressing, keep pushing. To the point where it gets very, very difficult. Your sand gets so compacted after you've lost a load of it as well. And eventually the glass will go, no matter how good you are, but eventually you will break. Now, let's try and do it the way the quadrant is trying to design it for you, is empty vessel every day. You see your number 1s, you pick 2 or 3 of them, you place them in the jar at specific periods of your day. You fill and pour in the sand. The water and all will kind of make its way there. Will it hurt you? No. Will it compact it? No, because they're in there. Is there even space to squeeze in another little rock? Yes, if need be, because we've kind of tackled it in the right order and in a different format, and along with trying to protect the glass. So I hope it makes a little bit of sense. We've come towards the end of the session. I will stop sharing there. As I said, thank you for listening. Thank you for coming along. If you have any questions, I would like to take them either in the chat function or the likes.